This morning, it's a legal clash of the titans, with one of the most high-powered organizations in American sports, NASCAR, pitted in a heavyweight battle against one of the most celebrated athletes of all time, NBA Hall of Famer and six-time champion, Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan just walked into a federal courthouse and did something nobody thought possible. He made NASCAR's most powerful people explain themselves under oath. Let me tell you what's happening right now in Charlotte, North Carolina. The greatest basketball player of all time is taking on one of America's oldest sports organizations, and the things coming out in this trial are absolutely wild.
Tonight, after spending decades dominating the basketball court, NBA legend Michael Jordan competing in a courtroom, suing NASCAR, saying it's abusing its power as a monopoly. All part of a lawsuit brought by Jordan's 2311 racing team. And
Jordan owns a NASCAR team called 23XI Racing with driver Denny Hamlin. They've been racing since 2020, and honestly, they've been pretty successful. But last September, NASCAR told all the teams they had to sign a new contract. They gave them just 6 hours to sign a 112-page document. 6 hours. That's like your teacher handing you a massive test and saying you have to finish it before lunch. Jordan and one other team owner, Bob Jenkins from Front Row Motorsports, refused to sign. And now they're in court saying NASCAR is running the sport like a monopoly. That means NASCAR has too much power and uses it to hurt the teams financially. When Jordan took the witness stand last Friday, he didn't hold back. He told the court exactly why he decided to sue. Jordan said other team owners have been browbeaten for so many years trying to get change and just could not get to that point. And so then he said something that really sums up his whole attitude about this lawsuit. He looked at the jury and said, "I wasn't afraid to challenge NASCAR." Think about that for a second. These other owners have been dealing with NASCAR for decades. They've built huge facilities worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They have sponsors, employees, drivers. They felt stuck. But Jordan? He's Michael Jordan. He's not afraid of anyone. Jordan also talked about why he even got into NASCAR in the first place. He grew up in North Carolina watching races with his family. They'd pile into the car and drive all the way to Talladega in Alabama just to watch stock car racing. His favorite driver was Richard Petty at first because that's who his dad liked. Later, he switched to Cale Yarborough. Jordan actually joked in court about this, saying Yarborough was the original number 11. And then he looked at Denny Hamlin, who drives the number 11 now, and said, "Sorry, Denny." But the most important thing Jordan said was about money. He explained that NASCAR treats teams like contractors, not partners. In the NBA, teams and players share about half the revenue. Everyone wins together. But in NASCAR, Jordan said it's completely different. The teams are struggling while NASCAR makes huge profits. Jordan has personally invested between $35 and $40 million into his race team. That's a lot of money, even for Michael Jordan. He bought a third car for $28 million just to give his team a better chance to win. And here's the crazy part. That charter he bought is basically expired now because they didn't sign the new contract. Now let's talk about Denny Hamlin, because his testimony was intense. Hamlin actually started crying on the stand when he talked about his father, who's very sick right now. He explained how his dad supported his racing dreams when he was younger. It was emotional. But then Hamlin got fired up when NASCAR's lawyers started questioning him. There was this moment in 2023 when Hamlin sat down for lunch with Jim France, the man who runs NASCAR. The France family has owned NASCAR since 1948. Hamlin wanted to talk about the money problems teams were facing. You know what Jim France told him? He said, "The problem in NASCAR is teams spend too much money." France claimed teams should only be spending $10 million per season instead of $20 million. Hamlin couldn't believe it. He told France, "We've cut this grass so short we're down to the dirt." Basically, the teams have already cut costs as much as they possibly can. Hamlin asked France how he was supposed to get his investment back. France had no answer, nothing. And that's when Hamlin knew something had to change. Hamlin called the new contract NASCAR offered essentially my death certificate for the future. He said if they signed it, 23XI Racing would be out of business within 10 years. The profit margin for his team is only 2.26%. That means if they lose just one major sponsor, all their profit disappears. Here's something really interesting that came out during the trial. NASCAR's lawyer showed clips of Hamlin on podcasts saying positive things about NASCAR and the new race car they introduced. The lawyer tried to use this against him, like Hamlin was being hypocritical. But Hamlin explained it perfectly. He said, What I do publicly is put out positive messages. That's my job. You give me talking points, I say it to make fans feel happy. In other words, NASCAR tells drivers what to say in public, and if they don't play along, there are consequences. Hamlin admitted that all his public comments were out of context because he's essentially forced to paint a rosy picture. Bob Jenkins, the owner of Front Row Motorsports, told an even sadder story. This guy loves NASCAR so much that he's been running a team since 2004. He's lost $100 million. $100 million. And that's even after winning the Daytona 500 in 2021, which is the biggest race in the sport. Jenkins said he held his nose when he signed the original charter agreement back in 2016 because he thought it would get better. But the new deal NASCAR offered last year was worse. He called it insulting. Jenkins said, NASCAR wanted to run the governance with an iron fist. It was like taxation without representation. He also revealed that Joe Gibbs, one of the most legendary team owners in NASCAR history, personally apologized to him for signing the new contract. Gibbs felt bad, but he had too much invested to walk away. Speaking of Joe Gibbs, his daughter-in-law Heather Gibbs gave powerful testimony too. She wrote a letter to Jim France begging him to make the charters permanent. Charters are basically like franchises in other sports. They guarantee your team a spot in every race and a share of the money. When Jim France read Heather's letter, NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell sent a text message to another NASCAR executive saying France was reading Heather's letter out loud and swearing every other sentence. But when O'Donnell testified in court, he changed his story and said France wasn't actually swearing. It was weird and confusing, and it made NASCAR look bad. The money situation is the biggest issue here. NASCAR now pays each chartered team $12.5 million per year. That sounds like a lot, right? But it costs $20 million just to bring one car to all 38 races. And that doesn't include driver salaries, building costs, or anything else. So the teams are losing money every single year. Meanwhile, NASCAR made $103 million in profit last year. The France family got paid $400 million over a 3-year period. Goldman Sachs valued NASCAR at $5 billion. NASCAR's defense is that they've actually helped the teams. They point out that charter values have gone way up. The first charter sold for $6 million in 2018. Now they're selling for $45 million. So NASCAR says the system is working. But the teams aren't buying it. They say 11 of the original 19 chartered teams have already gone out of business. That's more than half. If the system was really working, why are so many teams failing? There's also this whole issue with the race car itself. If Jordan and Jenkins win, they could get hundreds of millions in damages, or they could force NASCAR to completely restructure how it does business. A judge could literally tear apart NASCAR's entire business model. If NASCAR wins, 23XI Racing will probably shut down. Jordan has made it clear he's fighting for permanent charters, and if he doesn't get them, he's out. The sport would lose a team owned by the most famous athlete in the world.